I actually love Mercury retrograde. Genuinely, and not in the, oh, I've made peace with it kind of way, but I actually sincerely enjoy it. And it's because of a realization that I've had very recently about how we can approach this transit in a really useful way. I'm calling this approach the Mercury Retrograde Makeover. And by the end of this video, you are going to have my process for how to do this so that you can turn the most complained about transit in astrology into something that actually works for you. Hey everybody, welcome back. I'm Dana Solara. I'm an astrologer and spiritual coach, and I'm so excited to talk to you about this brand new way of working with Mercury retrograde that literally came to me yesterday. I actually had an entirely different episode planned for today, but I decided to go ahead and roll with this one because we are still very much in the first of 3 Mercury retrogrades here in 2026. It is arguably the messiest that we will have this year for sure, because Mercury is retrograde in Pisces. Pisces is the place of Mercury's detriment and fall, which is astrologer speak for Mercury does not like being in Pisces. It's hard for Mercury to execute the way it wants to with the precision and prowess and analytical detail that makes Mercury energy. We already know a Mercury retrograde is a time where the details get fuzzy. And when that is also happening in Pisces, feelings can really obscure the facts. And that actually doesn't have to be an inherently bad thing. And that's where I want to start. Because when I hear people talking about Mercury retrograde, astrologers and everyday people alike, it's all complaints. It's all eye rolls. It's all, oh, Mercury retrograde. And honestly, it drives me nuts. Even before I stumbled upon this idea of the Mercury retrograde makeover, I felt like it's never all bad. And definitely there's lots of astrologers talking about that specifically, that Mercury retrograde is really a time for reflection, for review, for refinement, for revision. It's time to slow down and assess the situation and make sure you're still on track. But what occurred to me yesterday is we could actually take that a step further and make this not just bearable, but fun. And I think that mindset shift is absolutely key to thriving no matter what. Because the main problem with approaching Mercury retrograde as if it's definitely going to suck is you make it more likely that it's definitely going to suck. I think if you're listening to this, you would agree that mindset is everything. The way we choose to interpret our reality is everything. If we have decided on some level that if it's Mercury retrograde, shit's going to hit the fan, what do you think's going to happen? You are at the very least going to be more primed to look for evidence that shit has hit the fan. And that's on neuroscience. That's not just me making shit up. So it definitely benefits us to change our mind about Mercury retrograde. And I'll be the first to say that I also have in the past gotten nervous, worried, or concerned about Mercury retrograde. I have changed my plans because of Mercury retrograde. And there have been times where I did not change my plans and I looked back and said, damn, I really should have changed my plans. So I'm not here trying to say that there are no annoyances with Mercury retrograde and it should just be full speed ahead, all green lights. Not at all. What I am saying is we should take the beneficial approach that we can have with Mercury retrograde, which is that reflection, refinement, revision mindset. And we can even go a step further to make it enjoyable. This is where we get to talk about the Mercury retrograde makeover. And I want to share how I stumbled upon this idea with you. I have Mercury in Pisces myself. And Pisces is my 6th house of work and wellness, generally speaking. Before we continue, I have to explain the houses in your chart tell us the material area of life where the astrology will manifest for you. So if you have transits going on in your 6th house, that means whatever energy that planet and zodiac combination bring up, whatever archetypes that activates, will show up in the area of life indicated by that part of your chart. So if it's the 6th house, work and wellness. Now, I just mentioned I have Mercury in Pisces. I'm a Libra rising, and Pisces is my sixth house. So that means this Mercury retrograde for me is a reflection, a review, a revision of my daily work and wellness. How am I taking care of myself? How am I spending my time? What am I working on? What needs my attention? What do I really need to chip away and plug away at? I forget which Pentacles card that is. Is that the 6 or the 7? I think it's the 7 where he's working, or maybe it's the 8. Somebody tell me in the comments. I can't remember off the top of my head. I think it's the 8. Anyway, my approach to working with the planets and with astrology transits in general is to keep a pretty open heart, open mind. I don't try to control. I don't really do elections. I don't do much with the astrology at the moment except watch it and reflect on it, because I think that is the most spacious and grounding and supportive way to work with the transits, which is all to say, I knew this Mercury retrograde was coming and I knew it was probably going to be messy, but I didn't really give it much thought beyond that. I just went about living my life. The Mercury Cazimi, which is the midpoint of the retrograde cycle, happened a couple days ago. And I naturally started thinking a little bit more about how to ensure I spend my time wisely. Now, that happened because my schedule is fucking booked. I am booked and busy right now. And that makes sense because what do we have right now? A stellium in Pisces, a Mercury retrograde in Pisces. And Pisces is what? My sixth house of work and wellness. I also got sick the day Mercury stationed retrograde. You can't make this shit up. It's hilarious. But what happened was right around the Cazimi, I realized, oh my God, I am doing a lot right now. I need to be really intentional about how I spend my time. That thought occurred to me without even thinking about the astrology. It was just a practical necessity that I needed to get organized. So I sat down, I used my tools, and I created some systems for myself, a way to reflect at the end of each week that takes my vision, my goals, my projects, my tasks all into account at the same time, and then takes a look at my schedule, and also looking at my schedule to plan out when I'm going to do what so nothing falls through the cracks. And that felt super grounding, super peaceful. It just made me feel really at ease and like, okay, this is a lot, but I can do it. I just need to stick with one thing at a time. Now, I also started taking my wellness routines a little more seriously around this time. When I got sick at the beginning of the Mercury retrograde cycle, I broke my 2-month-long streak of doing breath work every morning because I couldn't breathe through my nose. I didn't really want to breathe through my mouth either because I was having respiratory stuff going on. So I had to take a break. And when I was ready to come back to my wellness routines was right around the time I started getting a little more intentional with my scheduling. I ended up actually refining that routine a little bit, adding tapping to my morning breath work and adding an evening yoga class. Now, all that was a couple of days ago. Yesterday, I'm reflecting on all of this, how, wow, I feel really good. I feel like I've really gotten into a flow and a groove. It does feel like a lot right now, but I know I can do it, and I'm feeling really confident and capable. And I thought to myself, yeah, I really got a makeover in my work and my wellness. And all of a sudden, I realized this is Mercury retrograde at work right now. Let's remember the cycle started with me getting sick and being really fucking busy. Things fell apart first. And it was only after taking some time to rest and recover, which, look, I needed to do that. I was doing too much and I needed to rest. My body let me know. It was through that breakdown, though, that I was able to have the space and the realization, the insight to see I need a refresh. I need a makeover. And Mercury retrograde is built for that. So if we take this idea of reflection and refinement and revision, and we add the layer of a makeover to it, it changes things from a boring, stale, maybe dry kind of self-help and maybe not a good way process of I'm reflecting to something more exciting. Ooh, a makeover. It's fun. It's a rejuvenation. It's something to look forward to. Now, one thing you might be thinking is that sounds a little bypassy, and I get it. I don't think we need to ignore the challenges in the makeover process. If you think about getting an actual makeover, You have to go through a little bit of pain. If you've ever had your eyebrows waxed, if you've ever had any like micro needling, or your fucking, what did I have? My eyebrows microbladed in 2015, a little needle, little tattoos on your face, right? They say beauty is pain. And I think it's hilarious, by the way, that me, a Libra rising, thought of this. Like, this is such a Libra rising way of looking at a Mercury retrograde. But I truly think it's something that could benefit all of us because, again, what makes a Mercury retrograde suck is not the event so much as it is your mindset. Yes, there can be genuine shitty things that happen. There can be genuine complications, genuine annoyances, but we don't have to stay there. We can turn that into an opportunity to refine, to reflect, to upgrade, to make it better, more beautiful, more pleasing. And that's what I did on accident. This was a natural manifestation of the Mercury retrograde process. But once I did realize that, I was like, damn, if we did that on purpose, that would really change things. For example, if I woke up the day after Mercury stationed retrograde sick, which is what actually happened, and had this mindset of, okay, it's a Mercury retrograde makeover, I would still not enjoy being sick, but I might be more able to readily accept the fact. Because I don't know about you, but what's annoying about Mercury retrograde to me is the slowing down. I don't want to slow down. I want to fucking go full speed ahead. This is what I live for. I love to take action and go and all of that. And Mercury retrograde is not a time for that. And so that can be frustrating and annoying. And I'm not denying that. Nobody wants to get sick. But if I had that makeover mindset, I would say, this is good for me. And maybe I'm not sure how yet, but there's something in this for me. This is part of the makeover. And by the time you get to, I don't know, the middle or even the end of the cycle, you can start to see how. For example, we're not even to the end of the cycle yet, but I can already look back and see I definitely needed to rest. That was necessary. And it's fascinating because you can see often, or at least I can when I'm looking at my chart, that there are other things happening alongside that energy that reinforce it. For example, I had a 12th house lunar full moon eclipse happen during this Mercury retrograde cycle, which is definitely calling for rest, for hibernating, for going into, Chani Nicholas always says, the proverbial dark rooms. I love that. So the makeover mindset is not going to make Mercury retrograde annoyance free, unfortunately, but it will help you have a mindset that will transform the way you experience those annoyances. And that is really what astrology should help us do always, not just during Mercury retrograde. It gives us a spiritual lens so that we can understand this is happening for us and not to us. I know it's really hard to accept the idea that getting sick is something that's happening for you, but at least in my case, in this particular moment, I do think I can say that. I didn't enjoy it. I don't want to get sick again, but if it's something I need, if I need to rest, I'm grateful that I was able to be able to rest. Now I'm going to show you exactly how to use this process, and it's extremely simple. The first thing you need to do is know your birth chart. Specifically, you need to know where in your chart Mercury retrograde is happening, through what house in your birth chart. That is what we need to know in order to understand where Mercury retrograde is going to be showing up for you. Remember, the houses in your birth chart tell us the area of life that the astrology of the moment will manifest. So I like to explain it as, if you imagine your chart is like a 3D room with a floor and a ceiling, and the ceiling represents the heavens and the floor represents the earth, the earthly realm. You have on the ceiling the planets and the zodiac signs. These are archetypal energies working on a spiritual, non-physical level. And then you have on the material realm the houses, because each house tells us a different area of life that the celestial energy, the planets, the zodiac signs can manifest through. So once you know where in your chart, and by that I mean which house Mercury is retrograding through, you will then know which house topics are activated by this Mercury retrograde, or in other words, which part of your life is due for a makeover. Now, if you don't know how to get your chart or you want some refresh on the house topics, I do have a free astrology cheat sheet that you can grab down below. There's actually a video tutorial for how to pull your chart for free, along with keywords for all of the important symbols you need to know, and my 3-step process for delineating or translating, interpreting your personal chart. So you can grab that in the show notes. But that is the first step, is you figure out where and what house in your chart Mercury is retrograding through. The second step is to reflect on the refresh. What in this area of life has been, let's say, moving too fast? What have you maybe been avoiding looking at or getting honest about? What is ready to be reconsidered? And you're not trying to force anything here. Just let those questions kind of live in the front of your mind during a Mercury retrograde, and let them be the focus point for your Mercury retrograde reflection. Simply presenting the questions to yourself and then paying attention to what happens in your life through the lens of those questions is going to create space for the themes you need to notice to surface. You are priming yourself to notice them, in other words. And again, it's going to help you reframe the problems as they arise as well. Because when a problem, or if a problem arises, if an annoyance or some detour has to happen, you might be able to see the silver lining or the hidden blessing in whatever is getting in your way. And you'll start to understand that Mercury retrograde is not creating problems, and it's not just an annoying time of the year that we have to endure. It is illuminating something that was already there that actually really needed your attention, and that you are better off for having noticed. And when you get to approach the transit like this, it actually facilitates a really powerful change to where you stop feeling like a victim in your life and everything starts to feel like a gift. That is true peace and true freedom. So, to me, this is how we thrive in Mercury retrograde, and really anytime, any transit. We take back our power by understanding we have agency over how we choose to experience what happens to us. And we can choose to experience Mercury retrograde as a time to thrive. No matter what happens, no matter how annoying it actually is, we can find the blessing in it, and we can take back our power in the process. And I want to end with this. Mercury retrograde is a core feature. It's not a bug in the system. We get them 3 times a year regularly because they are necessary and natural. These are 3 weeks of built-in permission to slow down and look back and recalibrate. And in our culture that never stops moving, that's quite radical. So I encourage you to take back your time, to take back your agency, and to take back your joy during this and every Mercury retrograde, because it doesn't have to suck. It can actually be pretty good and maybe even a little bit fun. Don't forget to grab the astrology cheat sheet. That will help you put all the pieces together in this process. Until next time, I hope you have a wonderful day, a beautiful Mercury retrograde, if it currently is retrograde whenever you're listening to this. Let me know what you guys think of this, and I'll talk to you soon.